Hey, what's going on, everybody? Indypride here with Milk Cookie Total War, joined by Oakley High Def from THFE Productions.
Hey guys.
And today we're going to be bringing you a Hellenic hoedown between the Seleucids and the Bactrians. Now, this 2v2 was extremely interesting, very long. It's 30 minutes, but definitely stay until the end because it gets about as close as a 2v2 can possibly get. I'm not going to spoil the results, but it's definitely worth your time. Oakley, you want to go over the army setups real quick before we get into the replay?
Yeah, I'll start off with mine just because I'm most familiar with that. Then we'll toss it over to you, and then we'll look at our opponents. And you haven't mentioned our opponents actually just yet. We're going to be playing against Decius Maximus Meridius, who does a lot of army testing. He has a YouTube channel. And then we're going to be playing against Blademaster, who goes by Wolf Total War. He also has a YouTube channel. So we'll link those below, and I'm sure they'll be doing their own pair of commentary from their perspective. Let's go over my build. Like Indy said, we're going to be doing two of the Seleucids. Now, I always deploy in weird formations. I don't know why, when it got started, but I just have a habit of doing that. I think Wolf Blademaster said it best when he did a commentary. He said, I kind of play it like chess, where I move everything like one piece at a time. And try and support those units. And I guess that's how I prefer to play. I don't like the spaghetti lines, which might not be the most efficient. But anyways, my build here has the Thraeus Spears. I have 3 of them up front. These guys are good. You've seen me use them before. I toss them up front because they can blunt cavalry charges, and then they have spears that they can shower the opponents with. So 3 of those, interspersed between them is going to be an archer unit on each side, and then I have Syrian heavy archers between those in the center. That's the one I'm mostly relying on to tank enemy fire. But the other archers were just cheaper units I wanted to throw in for suppressing fire. In the center, behind that, I have a levy pikeman, just one of them. I know you should probably bring more pikes for them to be effective, but it's just enough to ward off a central push, and then I can swarm around whoever pushes around the flanks of that levy pikeman with 4 thorax swordsmen right there. On my left flank, I have 1 median cav and a peltas unit backing it up for close support. Then you can see my general unit, a Gima cav with the royal peltas there, and then on my right flank, Hellenic Canifrac and median cav once more. And I'll let you explain your build, spaghetti build.
Okay, so I have 1 Eastern Singer up front and 3 Syrian heavy archers. They're going to be doing the skirmishing for me. I have a main line of levy pikemen backed up by some Thoreo spears and some thorax swordsmen of the Royal Peltas General in the main line. And then in the back, I have some Medean cavalry and a Hellenic cataphract unit. So across from me, it's going to be, I believe, Wolf Blademaster was deployed across from me. He has a levy pike unit, or main line, some Eastern Singers behind them, a lot of horse archers, which are going to be very annoying all battle long, some Eastern Spearmen meat shields in the back, some Bactrian Noble Horse, a Bactrian Royal Guard, which is an interesting general choice from him, and he also has a Indian War Elephant.
Yeah.
So
So
Maximus Decimus Meridius
yeah.
is lined up across from Oakley. You want to go over his setup?
Yeah, sure. It seems like they may have coordinated for this. They seem to be sporting a pretty similar build. So you can see both of them combined have a huge levy pikeman. These guys are cheap guys, excellent for preventing a charge from the front. And that's all this build seems to be, is keep the enemy at bay and then move forward slowly but surely with your Eastern Slingers. And you can see down the line, that's 5 over there and an additional 4 over here. Back that up with 2 mercenary Syrian archers. That's a lot of firepower. I guess this is what this build is meant for. Then in close support, he also has the annoying Scythian horse archers. Very good stats on these guys. Cheap, nimble, fast, and effective. And then heavy Bactrian noble horse. Yeah, actually 4 or 5 of those guys. And yeah, so that's similar builds. And the Indian armored or Indian elephant, thank God it's not armored, in the center is going to be pretty annoying. But yeah, the strategy for them seems to be push forward with your pikes and then just tank it out in these skirmisher fights. So I don't know how to call this from the up front, from the get-go. How would you give our odds given the army composition? I'm not very much of a
Well,
multiplayer guy, or competitive multiplayer, I should say.
I don't know about that, okay. But we can press play 3, 2, 1, and let's talk about this faction matchup a little bit. So Seleucids are better in the infantry component. They have Royal Peltas. They have a better tree component in their armies. What they don't have is the horse archers, which on a map like Pyramids is going to be a big problem for Seleucids. Hellenics in general are not the strongest factions in World 2 multiplayer this time. We could have gone for a very meta type build, which you guys probably know what the Rome 2 meta game revolves around now. It's heavy infantry spam. So Boii, Galatia, Tylus, especially with their 95 armor tribal warriors, and Rome are the power factions because you can bring these very cheap, very heavily armored mid-tier swords that cut through everything in melee combat. Hellenics don't have those units. Even the Royal Peltas don't do particularly well against some of the mid-tier swords for Galatia and Boii and some of those units. But what they do have is a decent. They're just very good faction overall. They have good cavalry, they have pike support, they have archers, they have good skirmishers, but Seleucids do not have horse archers. And like I said, on a map like Pyramids, which is wide open and flat, horse archers are going to have the ability to harass our flanks and be very, very annoying. So in this matchup between Seleucids and Bactria, I'm not sure I could give either of them a clear advantage. They have very similar rosters because they're both Hellenic, but horse archers are very good, especially in late game situations. So maybe a little bit in Bactria's favor, but if it is, it's very, very minimal because the infantry for Seleucids is simply better.
Yeah, and what's going on here is the enemy is starting to pour forward with some of their cheap slingers, just trying to draw fire. You can see me on my flank. I'm pushing forward with close support of my Thureos spears. They're going to be nearby just to give some extra punch to the skirmishing. You can see I'm moving them up in tight columns. And I'm getting close, and I'm trying to be very careful with how many volleys I expend on these cheap guys. You can see here my Thureos spear got one volley, and then I'm going to be charging into combat just to scare these guys away. I know I don't have to get another volley on them. It's just enough to scare these forces away. While they retreat, I have, you can see my archers and Syrian heavy archers in supporting fire. So I'm just there to push the enemy forces out of the way, make them reform, and in the meantime, you know, allow my archers to go ahead and do their thing while we take relatively minimal losses. So that's how we're trying to counter and gain the skirmishing advantage. Over on my right flank, I've been able to put enough pressure with my own peltas, Thureos spears, and cavalry nearby, median cav, to deny the enemy horse archers from pushing that side. However, in the back, it seems like they've scooted around your flank, and I hadn't actually been watching your side of the battlefield, and they're going to be very sneaky, move in one of the mercenary Scythian horse archers behind my median cav. Meanwhile, I'm not watching this part of the battlefield. And he's just gonna, you can see where my micro is focusing up through the center, and they are literally creeping behind me like out of some sort of horror movie, and I didn't see that coming at all, so they're gonna start to obliterate my median cav, unfortunately.
Do they end up doing a lot of damage in that?
Yeah,
that fight there? Like,
yeah,
are they gonna...
they end up doing a significant amount of damage to me. Over in the front, you can see my Thureos spears are in an awkward position, just point blank against the enemy slingers. It's just enough to disrupt and distract them. We're having a small cavalry engagement, but that's why I always keep my guys in close support. My archers, peltas, and Thureos spears all throwing you know, javelins, arrows, everything into that cavalry fight. So I'm doing everything I can to work in close support with my troops and try and save them. Meanwhile, the enemy horse archers are still being denied moving around the flank. That's pretty good for us. They are charging, however, with some of these levy pikemen. I did break the enemy eastern slingers, and so I'm just going to pull out of that fight. So I figured I took enough of a chunk out of the enemy force that I'm going to now start retreating and not try and push my advantage. You can see the enemy cavalry that were chipping away at my guys have brought me down to 57 men. Let's go ahead and talk about your side of the battlefield. I can see it's underway. The battle is.
Yeah, things are starting in earnest at this point. So the skirmish fight has started. I wanted to take his skirmishers off the field first. The Battery and Peltas were my main priority. I've done a little bit of damage to them, but they do have decent, especially for a Peltas unit. 65 armor is quite good and a very decent missile block chance as well. He does have some Eastern Slingers that I wanted to take off the field because over time they could whittle down some of my heavy archers, but I noticed that his main line was moving up too close to me. I wanted to pull back and do some more skirmishing because I did feel like I had the skirmish advantage with these Syrian heavy archers. He does not have a lot of those. In fact, I'm not sure he has any. He has, yeah, just the Battery and Peltas and the Slingers. So I definitely had a skirmish advantage, and I wanted to make sure I used that to its fullest potential. So what you'll sometimes see newer players do is they'll have a very significant skirmish advantage, but then they'll still go into melee combat, and I didn't see the purpose of doing that. I can scoot back and make him come to me and maybe get out of position a little bit. So I've done that, and I'm going to then move my Syrian heavy archers back up and start shooting again. So his pike line is moving up. I've done a little bit of damage to them as well, but the levy pikes are not super important. You can see he's kind of spaghetti lined with them. I'm just going to use my own levy pikes to block, and that'll kind of be a wash. But I wanted to get his Peltas off the field because, for me, they are the most dangerous unit on the field over on this side. He does have the archers in the flank harassing me a little bit, but they haven't done a lot of damage. In fact, that one has 0 kills. But he started moving his Battery and Noble Horse up on my right flank, and then I started to realize that combat was going to start very soon, so I got a little bit nervous right here. He's going to charge in, actually.
And you can see how the enemy build was supposed to work. long line of lovely pikes and then slingers in the back to deal damage, and they just force us out of the way with their pike line, swoop around with the horse archers. They're starting to envelop you. It's getting kind of scary. Myself, with my build where I don't rely on spaghetti lines, that I don't have any formal organization of the army, I move pieces around. They've been a little bit more confounded as to how to surround me, but I am starting to get picked apart. I am winning some of the combat where I can get engaged, denying the enemy horse archers from doing almost anything. They did, however, tie down my general, my Gima Cav, with some Bactrian Noble Horse. I'm going to try and swing around and support them with archers up on the hill, Peltas nearby, so you can see how always in close support I'm trying to kill the enemy Cav. In my center, however, it looks like they are getting some Cav to strike away at my guys. My median Cav was whittled down to 27 men before I realized and chased off the enemy Cav. And I do have, unfortunately, extended a little bit too far out some Thorax Swordsmen. They were tied up against some enemy Bactrian Noble Horse. My idea was to try and tie up as much of the Noble Horse and enemy Cav and skirmishers as possible. I didn't care at all about the Levy Pikemen. If we can knock everything else out the field, the Levy Pikemen are a piece of cake to deal with. That was my strategy, and you can see me here again extending a little bit far. Thoreo spears are fodder units. You send them out, they tie the enemy down with javelin, tie the cav down, and then you do close support with your archers who are always firing from a distance. That's my strategy. If we want to go back to your side of the battlefield, that'd be great. Also, actually, mind you, the Indian war elephants in the center have been tempted to move out in the center, but it looks like you're scooting over some eastern slingers in anticipation of them moving into position. They haven't been committed just yet. They're waiting to do just that.
Yeah, one thing that I think you've done really well in this battle so far is backing up your cav fights with a lot of peltas and archer fire, which is important because it's by far the easiest way to kill cavalry. With the bonus versus large for javelins, you can do a lot of damage, and you've already taken his general unit, Maximus' general unit, down about 40 men in the Bactrian Royal Cavalry, which is very important. Over on my side, the main line has actually started engaging. The pikes are kind of fighting, and I tried to get my Royal Peltas around the flank. Kind of messed that up a little bit. I'm going to pull them out soon and get around the flank, but Blademaster actually wanted to engage his Indian war elephants, and this is where I'm going to help out a lot here. I'm going to bring an Eastern Slinger and a Syrian Heavy Archer and a Thorax Sword over here and start targeting that. And he's going to run the elephants into combat, and they're going to take some jav throws, which this is why elephants are bad at the moment, honestly. One jav throw from a Thorax Sword caused them to run amok and killed one of the elephant units. Did a bunch of HP damage too. So that was one volley. You didn't have to do anything. You just let the Thorax Sword stand there. Normally, like you would think an infantry unit would get obliterated by elephants. They weren't even able to charge in. They didn't get a good charge bonus off. Only 27 kills. They're running amok. Maximus and Blademaster don't have control of them, and that's going to allow my slingers and your levy pikes and some of your other units that are surrounding it to just kind of tie it down and shoot it to death. So these elephants are not going to make a big impact on the battle. They're up to 78 kills, which is like, yeah, it looks bad, but considering how much they cost, not worth the investment at all. And I think they're going to end up dying very, very soon here.
It's interesting what's been going on over on the left. My guys in that checkerboard pattern and the stuff I was doing over here, I got a good amount of kills, but my guys have been drawn out. And the opponents are, now that I've been split apart and I've been whittled in number, I don't have enough reinforcements, so we've pretty much lost the left. You can see the roving bands of enemy Eastern Slingers and Horse Archers trying to reposition. We burst through the center, which is going to allow us to clean up the right, so it seems like we're going to kind of trade flanks. We're going to seize the right, they're going to seize the left, and we'll see where that takes us. Meanwhile, the enemy Hellenic Cataphracts, I know that's some of our Hellenic Cataphracts, sorry. Yeah, meanwhile, the enemy's going to try and clean up the rest of our guys here. And Indy, I think at this point, it's when you start to call for me to reform, come back to your side where we have perhaps more momentum going.
Yeah, so it looked like on your side things weren't going horribly, but he has so many units in reserve that we just kind of wanted to consolidate our troops. It actually doesn't look like you lost your side of the battle at all. Like, we have a lot of units over there, but you did take a ton of damage. We wanted to make sure that we killed Blademaster first, though. You have an Agema Cavalry here. They got a good hammer and anvil off on his Bactrian Royal Guard, and we have them surrounded. So Blademaster has some troops in my rear. He has a Noble Horse and a Bactrian Peltas and an Eastern Spearman over there. But I have my pikes here to reinforce. I have my Royal Peltas. We're going to be able to clean up Blademaster's infantry, but he still has the mobility advantage over on this side. He can run away from your Hellenic Cataphracts and just harass them with the Horse Archers. And I don't have much cav left on the field at all, actually. I have Well, no, actually, I have 51 in one Medean cab and 73 in the other, so it's not too bad. And actually, I still have my Hellenic Cataphract at about half strength, so mobility isn't a horrible thing for me. But I have nothing to catch his horse archers, which are going to end up starting to become a problem. In the late game situations where troops have taken a lot of HP damage, you can charge in with horse archers. You can skirmish units down a lot easier when they aren't focusing on you. So we do have to be wary of what those horse archers can do. They do have a lot of capabilities in late game situations. But first, we need to make sure that these pikes and the other infantry for Blademaster get wiped off the field. So I have engaged my Royal Peltash unit and killed a lot of them. Got a really good hammer and anvil off on the Bactrian Royal Guard, which are going to pop their battle rhythm ability, but honestly, his gen is surrounded at this point. Blademaster's general is not going to be able to make it out of this combat, and that means that we're probably going to win over on this side at least.
Yeah, and here we've tied down the enemy heavy cav. Everything's being thrown into that fight, so pretty much they've got nothing going for them here. You're gonna chase away some of their Bactrian horse archers, so we're gonna clean that up. The main thing I was worried about on my side of the battlefield is, yes, I was able to take out their heavy cav, their pikemen, their elephants, but what they had left at that point was all skirmishers pretty much, and I can't stick around for that fight because I would just get shot to pieces, which is what's going on here. You can see them reforming. The battle horns were blown to reform and fall back, and you can see them here now gathering their strength for a second fight, a re-engagement, and yes, I have a couple stragglers left over. Royal Peltas being torn apart, and I've had to leave some units in reserve, kind of doom them to hold a delaying action while we try and pull back some of our guys to a makeshift line while we're trying to clean up, like you said, the enemy general who's popping all sorts of abilities, but he's going to go down. And we do have some of our own skirmishers, which is important. If we didn't have any left, we'd be in a pretty tight position.
Yeah, so things are actually very even at this point. Maximus did something that was very interesting. He kept his horse archers in reserve for most of the battle. They have almost all of their ammunition, if not all of their ammunition, which means they're going to have each about 15 shots. So in a late game situation, that's pretty scary, and some of his skirmishers still have a lot of their stuff remaining. So pulling back to that hill was interesting. It made it look like he kind of conceded that side of the battle, but he's kept a lot of his stuff in reserve, and these skirmishers can do a lot of damage in these kind of situations. So I told you to pull back to my side so we could regroup, and what's going to be good about our location here, we're going to kind of deploy in a line between these two trees, and this batch of trees right here over where my guys are starting to move to is going to be very important because it's going to shield us from some of the fire, and it's pretty much the only cover on this entire pyramid's map from withering skirmish fire. So if we can move some of our guys in there and then move up through that, it'll be easier to engage, but making Maximus engage is going to be difficult because he has almost all skirmishers and very few melee troops.
Yeah.
So catching him might not be the easiest thing, but we do have cav on the field, which is important.
And I have my general down to 8 men, so I have to be babysitting that guy, trying to escort him with my Hellenic Cataphracts, Median Cav, and some of your own Median Cav. We're trying to have like escorts right there. I tried to camp up in one of these other woods because I was afraid of getting completely isolated in one of the woods. By tying this down, I'm hoping to distract the opponents. If they were to completely try and surround our other force, they would be exposed to a flanking assault from these guys in the woods, so I'm parking them up here just for the time being to prevent a full surround. The circling enemy horse archers are going to try and do what they can, but it's mostly from the front where I think they're going to just try and throw in their slingers and Syrian archers and try and get the damage done there first, and then swoop in with the archer cav later.
Yeah, we do have to be very worried about those horse archers. Again, like I said, Maximus was very, very smart with conserving his ammo. I think Blademaster was a little bit more carefree with shooting, which is not necessarily a bad thing because he needed to shoot over on my side to do damage to the units. But a lot of Blademaster's stuff is down to maybe half ammunition or even more so. I think some of his archers actually don't have any ammunition at all. I'm not sure, but I can even tell whose are whose at this point. But I saw one of Blademaster's earlier on trying to charge into the center, get at my skirmishers. So any of these archer units, these horse archers that are out of ammunition, are going to be on anti-skirmish duty. Their job is to kill the Syrian heavy archers and make sure they don't get their skirmish fire off. So we have to be very careful at supporting our very, honestly, kind of isolated heavy archers. Need to make sure they don't get charged by any of these cav units, because if they do, we're going to lose a significant part of our army. I have 2 almost full strength skirmishers, and we're moving to the woods now, and just going to try to survive this withering skirmish fire that's about to come from Maximus. But we do, first and foremost, in these kind of situations, you want to get the infantry off the field. You just don't want to expose your own lines too much to enemy fire. So if we can kill these levy pikes and the other units backing them up, like the maybe Thoreos. No, it's all levy pikemen. If we can get those off the field, that'll be very good for us. We just have to make sure that we don't turn our flank too much and allow those horse archers to start shooting us in the back, because that will be a big problem for us.
And what's pretty scary here is we had those 2 woods that were secured. I think you gave me the, you kind of made the decision like, hey, we got to consolidate in one of the woods. So I'm leading my men back from that one wood. And in crossing the open terrain, you can see immediately the enemy horse archers swarmed around us. And they're just going to be harassing our guys, kind of like at Karai, where Crassus was picked apart on the move. Yeah, I'm going to make the harrowing crossing, taking volley after volley along the way. I'm losing men. So you can see just how scary these horse archers are in the open terrain. But we're trying to consolidate and form up. And like Indy said, we're going to try and take out the enemy infantry. So we're squaring up in the center, pikes against pikes. And I have my Hellenic cataphracts, which are actually going to be very important to trying to break the enemy line. You can see you're engaging in the front. We have our supporting archers and other units in the woods to do less damage. They're going to be targeting the enemy slingers, and on both flanks it looks like we're pushing around with our heavy cav and infantry to try and crack the main line as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of my Medean cav got skewered on the end of the pike there, which wasn't ideal, but I only lost 3 or 4 men, and I managed to tie down his Bactrian noble horse, which is important. I think Maximus is actually making a mistake right here. He does have a clear skirmish advantage, I feel like, so I don't think he had to take this fight. I don't think he had to engage us at all here, and he is going to expose a lot of his line, the mercenary Syrian archers, and the slingers in the back, to a lot of fire from us. So I think that was maybe a little bit of a mistake. He's going to lose a cav unit here, probably the Bactrian noble horse, and definitely a lot of his skirmish units, but this is not going to be an easy fight for us by any means. Maximus' general is actually down to 8 men and going into combat, so they're probably going to die there, but his pikes are definitely going to lose to our pikes. We have more men, and we have the Royal Peltas and the calves swarming over the flank, so what we wanted to do here is we wanted to just tie down the pikes in the center and then flank around, and I think we did a very good job of that. We're pushing the flank here, taking out this Bactrian noble horse. Very good so far. But
Mike, I want to point out my cataphracts too. Just cresting on 300 kills. They were the ones who broke the enemy right flank, and they're just helping to collapse that. Meanwhile, you're collapsing the left. So I think we got a very cost-effective trade with that infantry engagement. Cleaned it up super quick without taking too many of our own losses. Which, like you said, probably shouldn't have been done on the opponent's part. They had a lot of slingers. They probably should have exhausted that first.
Yeah, so your Hellenic cataphracts, yeah, up to 344 kills now, chasing down some more of these mercenary Syrian archers. They're going to be taking some volleys from the Eastern slingers, but it looks like all the skirmishers in the back here are going to start dying to these cataphracts, which is kind of interesting. In late game situations, you normally don't see cataphracts catch up to enemy skirmishers very easily because they're, first off, very slow and heavily armored, but they're also normally have a stamina problem, but you pop second wind on them, which was very, very smart. That's going to allow them to get back up to fresh, and a fresh cataphract in a late game situation is a big deal. I cannot stress enough how important stamina is in this game. If a unit is exhausted, they're fighting at about 50% of their max potential. So when you refresh that unit at half strength, they suddenly become much more potent in combat, and they're actually able to catch up to some of these skirmishers. So you routed a lot of Maximus skirmishers there. That was very important, and it looks, at this point, it looks amazing for us. We're
yeah,
like,
look at that.
This.
Look at that balance of power. And now
very far shifted in our favor.
And now we're entering the interesting phase where all of the enemy force is mounted. I think every single unit minus this Bactrian noble horse is going to be a horse archer unit. So we're like, okay, there's no way we can chase them down. The best we can do is hole up in the forest and try and focus fire. I can see one of the Scythian horse archers is starting to rout, but they're just going to park themselves super close and start targeting our exposed guys. These Scythian horse archers now don't really have to fear us. They can get as close as they want, put heavy shot on, and just do devastating amounts of damage against our guys. You can see the balance of power is in our favor, but now let's see how that balance of bar shifts once you expend, you know, volley after volley of horse archer ammo. And
yeah,
these guys
so
can
at this point
charge in too.
At this point in the battle, I've called out. I'm like, Oakley, we gotta get to the forest. We have to camp it. We have to box. Literally, there's no other option here. He has the skirmish advantage and he has the mobility advantage. So I was like, this one thorax sword is isolated out here. I was like, no, get it in, get it in, get it in. But it's really hard for you because they're kind of tired, first off. But like they're just gonna get harassed down by the horse archers. So anytime they come up, you want to try to turn them around and make sure they don't get charged. But we just need to box up here because there's gonna be a lot of skirmish fire coming in. we have to hope that they run out of ammunition or they don't have a lot. And at this point, we were all on TeamSpeak together, and we were asking Maximus like, how much ammo do you have? How much ammo? And he's like, full. And I wasn't sure that I believed him because like, how could you go a whole battle without expanding ammunition? But he kept a lot of these guys in reserve, so he actually does have a lot of ammunition. So you look at this, oh, we have so many pikes, we have a pike box, we're fine, it's just a couple of skirmishers, but they're full ammo. That's a problem. So we have not won this battle yet, not by a long shot.
And he's doing a pretty effective job of continuing to charge my thorax swordsman as I try and pull them in. He probably turned Fire of Will off. Yeah, I don't see these guys shooting. He's saying, okay, I'm not going to waste my shots on these guys if I can charge them straight up. And my guys are agonizingly trying to walk back to the defense. My Hellenic Cataphracts keep making sorties just to ward off the enemy cav, trying to like, come on guys, make it back to the inner circle. Yeah, it's going to be a long walk to get in, and every time I try and break out of shield wall, he's going to bait a charge, or feign a charge, I should say. And I don't know, did you have any more ammo left on your guys at this point?
No, I was out of ammunition on basically everything. If I had ammo left in some of these Syrian heavy archers and the slingers, I could have done actually a lot of damage to these horse archers. They're just not very high armor. But he's charging into the flanks, and now they're going to start doing something that's very smart. They see that my Royal Peltas general is down to 27 men. They see that your general, like you said, is down to 8 men. They can target those, and this forest is not very dense. You can see there aren't a lot of trees there. They can actually shoot in, and they're shooting at your gen, and you just lost 4 men in your Gemma Cav. There's going to be a morale penalty when you lose that general unit, and there's going to be a morale penalty when I lose my general unit. And your gen is in red morale, mine is in yellow morale. Things are starting to get scary, and we don't have a whole lot to actually catch and tie down these horse archers or the cav when they charge in, because the cataphracts are simply slower than the horse archers. So, and there aren't very many men left in that unit anyway. So, have charge in and pull out, and charge in and pull out. He also has fire ammunition, which a penalty is devastating when combined with the loss of a general. So, like I said, this is really scary for us. We cannot really respond. We don't have ammunition. We can't shoot back at them. We have to hope they run out of ammunition. If they ran out of ammunition right now, it's easy. We win. But heavy shot and fire arrows are going to take their toll over time for sure.
And they're targeting the cataphracts. The advantage they have now is that they're on both sides, and they're all around us. So, you know, we can form up into a circle or a square or a box, but if they're surrounding us, they just have to target the side opposite them, and they got our undefended back. So it's very, very hard for us to block this. And actually, arrows coming in from all sides, they seem to be targeting our heavy cavalry for the time being, trying to knock out our elite troops. And I think at this point we've probably lost both of our generals. I haven't been keeping track. Yeah, I think we have.
I don't see my Royal Peltas, so yeah, I think he's dead. And you can see morale is a big problem now. Whistling and flaming.
Holy shit. Look at my Hellenic Cataphracts. 460 kills on those guys. They're making them a top priority to get revenge.
They did work. They can't catch any of these cav units, and they have no reason to engage, and they still have a lot of ammo. So this is literally, it's going to be us sitting in a box and hoping they run out of ammunition in time. As soon as they run out of ammunition, the balance bar shifts in our favor, and honestly, horse archers rout in endgame scenarios when they run out of ammo. But all of our guys are wavering, and this is just really, really scary. And he's stacking so many morale penalties. Maximus and Blademaster together have done a great job of stacking.
And there goes some of our levy pikemen.
Yeah, the low tier units are gonna rout first, and things are gonna suddenly look really bad for us.
Yeah, and once they do that, it starts causing a chain rout. And the second our guys, you know, break out of our box, they're gonna go ahead and turn off fire at will and just start attacking those guys in the open plains, making sure they shatter, and then they're going to turn their attention back in our line. It looks like you clipped some of those horse archers on your pikes, which is nice. Yeah. That was an awesome little pickup right there. But our Thoreo spears, yeah, it's moving up the tiers. The low tiers are routing and breaking, then the mid tiers, and finally, you know, some heavy thorax swordsmen are going to be next on that list, and some of these guys are super tired too. And he still kept his Bactria Noble horse too. They're full strength.
Yeah, I can't stress enough though that like this battle has not been won by either side. Like it looked very much in our favor before they started skirmishing us down at the end, and now it looks very much in their favor. But the balance bar is still relatively even. We still have high tier units with relatively high morale. So thorax swordsman, decent base morale. I still have a thorax swordsman almost full strength, and we still have a couple pike units. So we're gonna box up again. And honestly just hold on for dear life. That's all we're doing at this point. We're just trying to, oh, you get charged there. We're just trying our best to hold on for dear life and hope that we can survive this onslaught because it's coming down to the wire at this point.
Yeah, and I got caught in a position where his cab would engage and I would charge out after them to make sure, if they pull out, I do damage. He would draw me out, and then I would try and go back into the square, and that's where you saw these Thorax Swordsmen get destroyed. So I'm not quite sure what to do in that situation, let them run away or try and kill them by chasing them and break them. So yeah, it's a very tricky situation we're left in. You can see our new box getting ever smaller.
Yeah, as units route, it's getting smaller and smaller. And I can't. I feel so bad for the guys that are in this box because it's got to be the most helpless situation that I can possibly think of. Just completely surrounded. You know that there aren't that many men on the other side. Like if we count the actual manpower, have them very much outnumbered, much like the Romans did the Parthians at Carrhae. But it doesn't really matter because we can't catch them, we can't touch them. All you can do is either break and run, or stay in a box, raise your shield, and hope to survive the onslaught. And that's what our men are doing at this point, but the morale penalties are stacking, and it's getting scarier and scarier, and some of the lower tier troops have routed, and pretty much only left with this one levy pike, and the rest are higher tier units like the Thoreos and the Thorax swords.
Yeah, and they're getting so much efficiency out of these horse archers at the end. I mean, tying up our guys with cycle charges, and then charging in with the higher tier melee cavalry, and you can see there, I mean, we kind of absorbed that charge, but because we're tied up in the back, it's a morale penalty. It's gonna start to stack. And my guys at 98 men left, and yours at 105 are starting to waver. That's pretty crazy. So they're charging in waves en masse here. Let's see how many these Bactrian noble horse were they at. They only lost 3 men on that charge. You can see how much of a chunk that took out of our line there. And we're on the precipice of breaking. They're going to even charge into some Thoreau spears. Our levy pikemen have called it quits and are taking off, and they're going to get eaten up too. It is not going well. The enemy,
which bothers me so much,
yeah.
because like if you were a low tier or any unit and you decided to break at this point, how dumb are you? Like that's the worst thing you could possibly do is break and drop your armor and shield and run for it. Where are you going to run? You're in the middle of a desert. You have to just stick in there and survive. Obviously, Rome 2 has a morale system that needs to keep in place, but if I was one of those guys, it's like, don't run. That's the worst thing you could possibly do is turn your back to horse archers who are coming to kill you.
Yeah, so now it's 3 units, and we're, ass to ass here, butt cheek to butt cheek. You got to get friendly with your neighbor. And you can see here, they're targeting heavy shot, point blank range, a couple feet away into the back of, one of our lines, making sure they target that unit, charging in from the flank, getting the most optimal engagements they can. And, every volley's, I still, in the battle, couldn't believe they had more ammo. Like, I'm like, when is this going to end? This is ridiculous. And there you go, we lost another unit, down to 2.
There's a lot of discipline, a lot of fire discipline from Maximus to keep ammunition, but the biggest problem now is the Bactrian noble horse. The horse archers have done their damage, they've done the whittling away, they've done the HP damage. The problem now is they have an almost full strength Bactrian noble horse that can just charge us with impunity, basically. It's kind of like Total War Attila, where you can just run in the cab over and over and over again and not take too much damage because we don't have any anti-cab bonuses. We don't have the precursor javelins anymore, and we don't have any spear units. So we just have to sit there and take it,
Indy,
bend over, and hope we live. Yeah.
Zoom out of the battlefield and look at all the corpses, and then look at what's left. Like, honestly, look, the entire 4 armies was massacred, and this is all that's left. I mean, 2 cavalry units and 2 infantry units? That's absurd.
Yeah.
It's so crazy close. And we're just hoping, one side is going to break. We're hoping if the horse archers break, then that's perfect. I mean, they're still up to 80 men, but if we can break those guys, then we can face, the Bactrian noble horse, and there's no way they can flank 2 units. You'll always have one facing them, then the other one can reposition, and we're good. So we're hoping to break one of those. They're hoping to break one of ours, because the second we break, we have an exposed flank. So it's both sides hoping that one of the 4 remaining units is going to break, and it's, it's no one's going to give here. That was so crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like, pop shield wall, hold the line, boys, hold the line! But then this was the biggest issue. The Bactrian noble horse ran through yours and got a rear charge off on mine. Down to red morale, losing a bunch of guys. At this point, it was like, I don't think we can survive this anymore. They do one more charge with the mercenary Scythian horse archers in the back. And things are going to start breaking, and it broke my heart. I felt like we had that battle won. It was just they had so much ammunition left at the end of the game that our guys finally broke. and I was so sad. But it was really actually an amazing 2v2. Like it could not have been closer, really, in a game with that many units and that like it was just insane. Like the end of that battle was just insane.
Yeah, really well fought. I'm going to go over and head to the stats just so we can see some of the kills here. Looks like I got the least number of kills. Maximus getting the most. I probably anticipate that's going to be all due to his horse archers. But yeah, overall, let's start taking a look at the units. So you want to talk about your army and how it performed, maybe?
Yeah, so my Royal Peltas did quite well, although to be honest, a lot of those kills were on Levy Pikemen, so not the most important unit. But like I said at the beginning of this battle, Seleucids have the infantry advantage, and I think that we showed that in this battle. We were able to take the infantry engagement on both sides and win. The problem is that Bactria has the horse archer advantage, and I think that in a map on a map like Pyramids, having horse archers and a cav advantage is probably more important. Bactrian noble horse are tankier than everything except probably the cataphract unit for Seleucids. They're certainly a lot better than Median cavalry. So they had the mobility and the cav advantage. We had the infantry advantage. So you kind of saw that battle progress in stages. We won the infantry fight, then we had to box up, and their mobility started taking over later on in the battle. They had made the mistake of engaging their mobility earlier on or using up their ammo too early. They would have easily lost that battle, but they were very smart. Blademaster and Maximus are both very good players. They knew that in a late game situation on Pyramids, keeping those horse archers alive was very, very important. So they did a very good job with that. My skirmishers did quite well, 137 kills, 126 kills, 116, quite good. Levy Pikemen actually did quite well as well, although those were just kills on Levy Pikemen. And my infantry did quite well. But my cav was a problem. 99 kills on a Hellenic Cataphract, not on very important units. I think those were only on like levy pikes like Hammer and Anvil, maybe one charge in the back of his general. So not very good considering how expensive a Hellenic Cataphract is. So I wasn't super happy with my cavalry micro. Oakley, on the other hand, did quite well
Holy
with his
shit.
Agama and his Hellenic Cataphract.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at my composition right here. It looks like my top two cav definitely doing well. My median cav didn't do super well. I think one of those, probably the one that just on the right, I think got obliterated, and I think that's the one that got shot up when I wasn't
Hmm.
looking, and I didn't notice that archers had gotten all the way around behind us. Again, speaking to the advantage of those horse archers. So I'm median cav underperforming right there. I did have one levy pikeman, even though he was by himself. 44 kills is like, it was okay. My infantry not doing that good. You can see the number of kills on them. I think it's mostly because I was dealing with levy pikemen and lots of skirmishers, and I couldn't quite catch up to those skirmishers. I think most of the kills on my swordsman was spent trying to throw javelins at elephants or at heavy cav, and so I got good kills, but there just aren't that many cavalry to kill. Thoreo spear is doing okay. Peltas, my archers actually doing pretty good for themselves for just having three skirmishers right there. I think I held off the enemy skirmishers pretty well. Let's look at Blademaster. His Bactrian Royal Guard actually doing very well. Elephants, even though they weren't super effective, still 150 kills. But man, take a look at that Bactrian Horse Archer, 418 kills. You can see once you have the time to micro those guys and they come into the late game, that's where they really shine. His Bactrian Noble Horse, his horsemen doing okay. I wouldn't say they did too well. The Horse Archers definitely standing up for themselves. Enemy Pike Line doing okay. Slingers not doing as much as they could have done. And I'll let you talk about Maximus's side then.
Yeah, so Maximus 424 kills on his Bactrian Royal Cavalry. I'm not even sure how it's possible because I know that you killed half of that unit like pretty early on in the fight. So very good. I guess they were killing skirmishers and stragglers. His cav overall, like a lot of these Bactrian Noble Horse didn't do particularly well. 11 kills, 9 kills, but a couple of them got 120, 113, 122. His horse archers, again, both Blademaster and Maximus, they did a great job with their horse archers. 418 kills on Blademasters and then 262 on these. Like that's just super cost effective. They're so good in late game situations, especially on maps where there's not a lot of forest. So I'm gonna say it again. I do think that Bactria does have the advantage on those kind of flat maps without a lot of terrain or a lot of forest. I think if that was like uh, one of those maps, like a barbarian style map with heavily forest areas, I think Seleucus definitely has the advantage there. But their skirmishers did very well, 100 kills, 117 kills, 148 kills, and just the pikes were there to block stuff. They weren't there to kill. They just deny space, and that's what pikes do very well in this game. They're not great at killing, generally speaking, and certainly you don't want to bring the elite tier pikes because they're just not cost effective. They cost way too much. But the low tier levy pikes and pikemen in general deny space very well and give time for the skirmishers and the horse archers to do their work. So I was honestly I was very sad we lost that battle, but it was an amazing 2v2. Really well played from Blademaster and Maximus, and honestly I was proud of the way we played as well. I think we played that battle pretty well. We made some mistakes here and there, but overall I think we played that about as good as we possibly could.
Yeah, so we'll probably end it there. Make sure to check out both of those guys' channel. I'm sure they'll be doing their own commentary from their perspective, so I'll keep an eye out for that and try and link it below. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, you guys. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
See you guys.